Complete and utter doozy. Lotion many years later. It's been 2 years. Oh yikes, that title is a train wreck. Sorry, I'll come up with something better once I can get my brain working again. It's that time of the year again. If you couldn't tell, check on your teacher's pals, if you have any. Hello Reddit, it's been a while, and I finally hopped back onto this account. And wow, I honestly don't even know where to start. Seeing so much support even today, well wishes into the new year, it's all really amazing stuff. I love the internet so much, especially you, Reddit. You guys were there for me during the dang hardest time in my life. I saw dozens of messages asking about updates and if I'm doing alright. Even people sharing their own stories of nearly identical things happening to them. One of their boyfriends blamed the new puppy. Crazy stuff. She even sent me a picture of the little guy, who looked so blameless. I can't believe this heart-wrenching experience is so mutual, and yet, I can't lose hope in humanity yet, just because of the waves of love I'm receiving all across the board from you guys. And now it's been about 2 years. It feels like forever ago, and at the same time, it feels like it happened all yesterday. Okay, now actually getting into it. There's a lot to get through here, lol. Buckle up. I ought to get the bad news out of the way first. Kai and I had a pretty nasty fallout. I don't want to dive into the nitty-gritty details. This will be like 30 pages long if I do that. But to sum it all up, in a gift wrap, we were roommates. Pretty involved in one another's business, yada yada. Basically, every time I went to the store, he knew. Every time he came home from work, I knew. All of our whereabouts were always mentally noted, just because of our proximity. Paired with the way we divvied up house chores and whatnot. All of our whereabouts were always mentally noted just because of our proximity, paired with the way we divvied up our house chores and whatnot. At some point, Kai tells me he's going on a date with a girl. Yay, good for him. In my case, this was just a few months after D-Day, and I was still in the middle of messy divorce proceedings. Plus, I wasn't really in the headspace for another relationship, so I wasn't even considering dating yet. Since Kai Marie didn't have a ring on it yet, they were able to break it off a little more cleanly. But not perfect, obviously. He went on the date, and then he went on another date, and then it stopped. Eventually, after a week of no dates, I asked him what happened out of curiosity. He told me that simply she'd ghosted him. It wasn't until a week later, on a totally random evening, that he drops the sparkly rainbow glitter bomb on me. He had tried to see Marie again. I know, pretty crazy behavior, right? Well, he was telling me this, crying and blubbering like a baby on his couch, and I couldn't help but feel bad for him, since the road to recovery from a blown-up relationship was rough. He told me that those dates had helped him realize it was over. Like, over. He described it like, and I'm probably mincing words here, when he first met Marie. She had this sweet girl-next-door customer service facade. As he got to know her better, he ended up revealing this fun-loving, wild-spirited girl underneath. The girl he said he fell in love with. But then, when he met up with her again that month, she was right back to her factory settings, which hurt him deep down because it felt like he'd started at square one all over again. He had not only ghosted her after 2 dates, but blocked her everywhere. It was a bit of a tough decision for me. Hits quite close to home, you know. But I decided to brush it off and console him instead of really caring. Things were clear for another few months after that. In that time, Kai morphed me into a total gym girl. Reading the last post, it's funny how iffy I was about the gym. Anyway, after a few of those halcyon months, Kai breaks the news to me again that he's going on another date. This time, with a friend of a mutual friend we have. Again, I was like, oh, go for it. At this time again, I was all muddled up in divorce proceedings and still sulking over my crumpled marriage, so dating still wasn't on the table for me. Now, as I'd mentioned before, we both kept tabs on each other just because of the way our arrangement was structured. So when Kai started leaving at 2 p.m. and coming home at 8 p.m, and his other dates with this girl had these equally long time frames, if not longer, I immediately noticed. Of course, I didn't really bring it up since I assumed he was having a really great time with her or something along those lines. But his absence on date days were noticeable. He'd even request for me to run some of his smaller errands he knew he'd miss on those days, just because of how long he was gone. Eventually, I was able to meet this girl. Grace, 20-something female, who was super, super sweet and was also a teacher. She taught elementary school kids, but still, it was a great thing for us to bond over. At this point, things seemed to be going great. Kai and Grace were adorbs, summer was passing, and everything was hunky-dory. I also, just about, officially divorced my ex-husband. But dang it, those dates were just so long. Even in his short meetups, there were at least 3 to 4 hours of him just gone, and so I finally subtly bring it up. Kai then tells me that Grace mostly plans their date spots, and those spots are usually an hour or two away from here with traffic. When I asked him where Grace lived, maybe they were trying to meet in the middle, Kai responded with a plain, not sure. At that point, maybe I'd read too many infidelity forums or something, but alarms were going off in my head. Grace probably didn't live too far off, considering she was a friend with one of our friends, and after months of dating Kai, didn't even know where she lived. Whereas she'd eaten at our place multiple times, and the date spots were purposely super far away. To me, it sounded a little off. This is where I probably overstepped. I go on Instagram, searching her name, and voila, I found Kai's girlfriend Grace in a wedding dress with this guy Mike back in 2019. She's married. Yikes. I wake up Kai immediately. Yes, cringe in my idiocracy, I'm sorry. And spill with all the receipts. It's 12 a.m. He's blurry eyes with work at 7 tomorrow. I've barged into his room wide-eyed, gesturing at the phone screen like a crazy person. It's all a mess. Finally, after I shut up, Kai gets mad, like fuming. He interrogates me as to why I was getting all up in Grace's business. And then when I told him about the red flags, he just got even more mad. The entire argument spiraled out of control. He told me I was way overstepping my boundaries, which I honestly was. But again, our proximity had made us constantly keeping tabs on each other. I asked him why the hell he was mad at me for trying to look out for him. It turned into a giant screaming match. Eventually, he went to the next level and rambled on about this was all probably because I was secretly into him and he's always thought our relationship had gone closer than it needed to be, which is why I was stalking him. Then that's when I got really mad and said some awful things I wish I could take back. I dug at him for a situation with Marie, that I'd never date him for $1 million, and then it devolved into calling him some nasty names, and I just had to walk out. It was nasty. We were both exhausted and aggravated, and it all just blew into 1,000 pieces in the span of one night. He woke me up early the next morning before he left. I thought the night had been time for our heads to cool and he'd come to apologize, but instead he decided to drop the news on me plainly, which he admitted that he was bearing on his shoulders for a while. Kai knew. He knew Grace was married since close to day one, but he'd shrugged it off. Her husband was a nice man, but Grace told Kai that she just couldn't feel for him anymore, and that explained why the gas bill for all those far-off dates didn't faze him, I guess. I'll admit, I wasn't too happy to hear this. I asked him how he would feel if Marie's hookups had known she was married and still went for her, to which Kai got mad all over again and told me not to bring Marie into this. We argued again. Definitely not as explosive the night before, but still pretty flaming, where Kate told me that he'd been avoiding telling me all this time because he knew I'd make a big deal out of it. I told him that infidelity was obviously personal to me, and I honestly expected it was for him too. To which he just straight up said it wasn't, and that being roommates with me was as exhausting as a full-time relationship, that I had no control over who he dated. So I was like, yeah, fine, date whoever you want. I just thought you needed to know if you were helping her cheat. I didn't mean for this to blow out of proportion. He said that was fine by him, and just left to work. I wasn't Kai's mother or something where I needed to dictate his relationships. I just thought Kai wanted to know, that he was being the other man here. I know if I was in a relationship with a man who was married already, I'd want someone to tell me, and based off my standards, I'd break it off with said man. But if Kai had different morals, regardless of our shared experiences, that was fine too. I just didn't want to associate myself with someone who perpetuated cheating. I didn't really have to move out of Kai's. He was nice enough to not overtly kick me out and make me homeless, but things were definitely tough and distant between us for the next while, and I'd lost respect for him in all honesty. Him continuing to see Grace, and also the idea he had that I was interested in him, it wasn't great. Finally, I was able to get together all my stuff and move out, to which I moved in with a family friend, and I was ultimately better off, even though it was pretty dang far from where I worked. I guess I ought to provide an update on the man himself, my ex-husband. Well, pretty soon after we officially divorced, he got engaged to another woman. Around this time, right after I moved out, I think I just about hit rock bottom. The whole AI panic with student work started happening in my district. I was beginning the process to move out properly into my own place, all while I was in a new community where I didn't really know anyone overall. I was pretty lonely and down all the time. I went on a couple dates, but they went quite mediocre, and I gave it up in the end, which only cemented how lonely I was. Wouldn't go back to those days for the world. Ex-husband reaches out to me, and he tells me about his engagement and all the good news. He tells me he's on some life improvement path, and that he wants to clean up his act, starting with giving me a good and well apology. He offered to meet me in person, locally, swearing up and down it wasn't a date, nor was he expecting me to accept said apology. I should have been more assertive, but I was totally beat down from life, and I felt like a totally different person, in a sucky, no good way, so I agreed like an idiot. I thought maybe an apology rather than a loose end would help me feel better about things. It went just as how you would expect it to. It started out okay, where we shared pleasantries, and he actually did apologize about everything. But then he just started pressing me about how my life was going. I tried not to tell him too many details, saying the kids are fine, I'm doing fine, whatever else was going on. But I guess I must have said one too many things because he quickly picked up on about how miserable my life was. He then had this Cheshire cat grin as he began to boast about his great new life, his hot girlfriend, her shiny engagement ring, and basically how everything was going great and amazing for him. He casually drops that his life had been leagues better than it's ever been, and that our separation was a blessing dressed as a curse. Can't lie and say it didn't hurt to hear the years I put in with him felt like burdens to him. At this point, he's most definitely rubbing it in, and eventually I get fed up with hearing him talk and weasel my way out of there. In the end, I never got invited to the wedding. So did we really make amends? Either way, I totally regretted doing all that. Total waste of my time, and it only dug me deeper into that depression pit. But alas, things eventually start looking up when you least expect it. After a long while of dragging myself through each day by the hair, I finally went on one more date. I'd lost a lot of weight and looked pretty sunken and pale, so I didn't think I'd make a great first impression. But what do you know? Fate can make things happen like magic. So that's where I met my current partner, Chase, 29 male, who is the greatest thing that has ever happened to me. He's so patient, undeniably sweet, so chatty and lively. Seriously, I'm used to being the loud and silly one in relationships, and I used to think I'd like a guy who offset my energy, smirk and roll his eyes at my jokes, whatever. A lot of people seem to throw themselves in that cliche, but let me give you some sage advice. If you're a ray of sunshine, don't search for the aloof, tall, dark, handsome Mr. Right. Please search for someone who matches your bright energy. It's so refreshing. I've been missing this all my life, thinking I want a straight-laced sucker. I've never felt so much love and so complete than I have with this big goofball. No more biscuit and butters being biscuit and butters. No more one-sided conversations. No more of those half-hearted scoff laugh dudes do to seem cool. We make the silliest jokes, the most legendary memories, and it feels so indescribably alive. Our conversations are strangely deep about the most oddball of topics, and never have I ever felt bored around him. If I keep going on about him, I think my fingers will break about how much I'll type. Jeez Louise. But anyway, there's a little more than I have to cover. Told you it'd be a lot, so I'm just going to get straight into it. It's late 2024, and the year's started back up again. I'm head over heels for Chase. Everything's going fine. I moved properly into my own place a little before that, back closer to my job and whatnot, but I didn't start going back to my old gym until then. That's when I saw Kai again. He didn't notice me for a few days, but when he did, he immediately came up to me. He very cordially apologized, told me he'd been worried sick since I'd gone basically no contact with him. He told me he said a lot of stupid things that he regretted, and if I ever wanted to be friends again, he was always open to it. And that's it. It's 2025 now. I have no clue if Kai is still with Grace. Kai has no clue I'm with Chase, but I still see him around the gym. So I haven't yet properly connected with him since his apology. Maybe I should, but honestly, this likely isn't the best way to describe it, but to me, Kai feels like a reoccurring character from the first movie that's making an abrupt entrance in the second or third movie. It's a weird feeling I'm probably making up, but I feel like I'm on a totally different chapter of my life now, what with Chase and my life happenings. So far beyond the events of my ex-husband and Marie and every other part of that time period. Not Lotion Man though. Lotion Man is simply timeless. Speaking of that legend himself, I did actually get around to showing Chase a rendition of Lotion Man. I won't lie, I was shaking a little bit. But to top this off with a nice little cherry for all you happy ending lovers, not only did he find Lotion Man absolutely hilarious with a full-on belly laugh, it's a bit of a running joke between us now. We've got Soap Man, Ketchup Man, Shaving Cream Man, Floor Dust Man, basically anything we can create smiley little guys with and make them real. And they all have silly accents too. Lotion Man, the world is your oyster. And with that, that's basically it. So much more has happened in my life that I've excluded here just because it's not really relevant to what I've typed here before. Seriously, a lot happens in a few years. But my god, vomiting all that info out into these verbose paragraphs has felt like therapy. Even if nobody reads this, I'll still feel the weight of the past lifted off my shoulders, even if it's just a bit. I guess the one lesson I've learned coming out of all of this and coming out of my 20s is that being unapologetically you will always do wonders, no matter what. Things change, life moves, it will always get better. If you shine too bright for the small box that is your life, then it's not your fault for being too radiant. You just need to get out of that damn box. I'll never apologize for being myself again, so you guys can just take all my wordy, nerdy, nonsensical paragraphs in their full, unedited glory. Lol. Love you, Reddit. Edit. My goodness, I forgot to add it, but yes, I did contact Grace's husband way back after I left Kai's. He blocked me immediately, so I contacted him again with more information and evidence, and he blocked me again. Not a lot came of it, so it must have slipped my mind. I figured I couldn't do much else after that because he put the lock on his Instagram account. I'm not sure if it was because of me, but either way, I gave him what I could. Please stop with the mean messages. I'm really glad you're in a loving relationship now, and I hope he treats you amazingly. Thanks for all the updates. I loved reading that. If you guys liked this longer style of videos, let me know in the comments. But that's it for today. Thanks for listening. Bye bye.